After all this talk of fighting and warfare, in Book 5 we finally get a nitty-gritty, down and dirty depiction of the kind of fighting that would have gone on in the rest of the Iliad. And here it is. Homer here chooses to single out Diomedes for distinction. Diomedes is a Greek warrior who is the third best of the Greek fighters after Achilles and Big Ajax. And he gets his moment of excellence. And the Greek word for that is aristeia. Aristeia, a moment of excellence. So those who have arete, or personal excellence, are often referred to as the aristoi, and they have moments of greatness called aristeia. And this is how you get your kleos. This is how you get your kleos. Well, what does he have to do to get his aristeia? Diomedes goes into battle, emboldened by Athena. He slays Pandarus. He almost kills Aeneas, the son of Aphrodite. Aeneas is rescued by Aphrodite, but in the process, Diomedes cuts her. He also wounds Ares by sticking a spear into his gut. At this point, we get a little bit of comic relief as Ares goes off to Mount Olympus to get healed from his stab wound. And he gets the same lecture Achilles gets from Agamemnon in Book 1. Zeus scolds him, saying, "You actually like fighting in warfare. What's wrong with you?" The difference is Ares is going to get over a spear wound to the gut, whereas humans might not. So again, we have comic relief, where when the same thing happens to a human on Earth, there are real consequences. Then in Book 6, something unexpected happens. In the middle of battle, Hector goes home to encourage the Trojan women to get Athena to help them by making prayers and offerings and giving Athena a beautiful dress to wear in her sanctuary. And along the way, he runs into his wife, Andromache, and she's holding their son, Astyanax. And this moment really humanizes Hector and turns him into more of a human being than any other character we've seen so far in this poem. And we see that he has a real relationship with his wife that is unlike the relationships between men and women we've seen so far in this poem, too. Think about the relationship between Agamemnon and Chryseis, or the relationship between Achilles and Briseis. This is a real husband-wife relationship. And here, she challenges him on why he's going back out into battle. And she asks him to stand in a place that's a little more safe and look out for himself a little bit more. Hector isn't content to stand back in a safe spot near one of the other gates. And here's why. He's ashamed of what people would think of him if he were to hang back. He's ashamed at what people would say if he did anything but his all for fighting to save Troy. So part of his answer is he's fighting because of eidos. He's fighting because of shame. The second reason he's fighting is because he has a genuine fear of what will happen to his family should he not give his all. He knows that he's Troy's best fighter, and if he's not giving his best, what's going to happen? And at this moment, we get a very touching display of affection from Hector. As he reaches out for his son, Astyanax is horrified. Remember, Astyanax is just a little baby, by the gore and filth on Hector's helmet. Hector has forgotten to take off his helmet when he reaches for his son, and Astyanax recoils. Hector pulls off his helmet and laughs, and then greets his baby fondly. And this really sets him up to be a different kind of hero from some of the other heroes we've met so far in this story. He really cares about those in his life, and he cares about things other than his shame and other than his time. Something else happens in Book 6 that's interesting. In an odd pause from all the gore, and you've noticed by now that the fighting gets pretty gory, Diomedes on the battlefield meets up with his Trojan counterpart, a warrior named Glaucus. And they're about to fight each other when they exchange lineages. And Glaucus tells Diomedes about where he's from, what his family is all about. In this moment, Diomedes realizes that he and Glaucus share a tie of Xenia. Xenia. What's Xenia? Xenia is guest friendship, and it's a relationship that's protected by Zeus. Guest friends were not allowed to harm each other, and if a guest friend was staying at your house, you weren't allowed to have harm come to this person, under pain of punishment from Zeus. What's the reason for this relationship? Why would two men who lived on different continents have any kind of tie of hospitality between them? The answer is simple. Back before there were hotels in every town, men who were traveling needed a safe place to stay. Because of this, they formed relationships of xenia with people in foreign countries. So when a stranger came to town, you would invite him in and feed him first before asking him any questions about where he was from and what his business was. What's it called when you were in a relationship like this with someone else? Your name in that relationship was xenos, that is guest friend. And the word means both guest and stranger. And it could apply to men who had formalized this agreement or even their descendants. In other words, if I'm xenos with a man who lives in Turkey, our children inherit this relationship and are bound by the bonds of this relationship when they grow up too. In Book 9, realizing that the Greeks aren't having such an easy time of it, Nestor suggests to Agamemnon that they send an embassy over to Achilles' tent. Maybe he'll relent and give in to them if they just give him a few things and just say they're sorry. Well, they don't say they're sorry, but they do send the very best ambassadors to go talk to Achilles. They send the men he trusts most. Odysseus, the best at talking, Phoenix, his trusted advisor from Phthia, and Ajax, the best of the fighters. How could this dream team of people go wrong? Well, here's how it goes wrong. They offer him the wrong things. What do they offer Achilles? They offer him vast treasure, 7 cities, 7 women, including Achilles' beloved Briseis, whom Agamemnon is promised that he has never laid a hand on. But to this, Achilles has kind of a shocking response. He says this: "Nothing is worth my life, not all the riches they say Troy had before the Greeks came. My mother Thetis, a moving silver grace, tells me 2 fates sweep me on to my death. If I stay here and fight, I'll never return home. My glory will be undying forever. If I return home to my fatherland, my glory is lost, but my life will be long, and death that ends all will not catch me soon." He asks what's worth dying for, and then he suggests that he has 2 fates that may sweep him on to his death. This is odd, because fate is the end at which your life is pointed. Is it predetermined? Possibly. But the real question here is, what is the path to your death? And I think that's what Achilles is really questioning. He can make choices that lead him to his fate, but either way he's going to get there. He's going to die either way. He's telling them he chooses how to get there. And while on the face of it, it would seem like Achilles' rejection of Agamemnon's offer is a shocking rejection of the Greek social order. This book celebrates the ideals of the society, in that this rejection of a social order is precisely what eventually leads Achilles back into battle. Every choice that Achilles makes, especially to stay away from battle, leads him back into battle inevitably. He ends up softening his position a bit by saying that he'll go back into battle when the Trojans are attacking the ships of the Greeks and are outside of his hut. Book 11 is where the tide turns in a sense. Patroclus has got the idea of going out into battle wearing Achilles' armor, and he asks Achilles if it's okay for him to do this, and Achilles agrees. He'll later advise Patroclus not to go storm the walls of Troy. Just go out and push the Trojans back. We'll see how that works out. And Book 14 again gives us comic relief with the introduction of the gods into the scene. In Book 14, Hera decides she's going to keep the Trojans from being successful by doing the following. Zeus is sitting on top of Mount Ida watching the action, and as long as he has his gaze on the battle, the Trojans are beating the Greeks. Hera wants the Greeks to be able to fight back. She needs to take Zeus's attention off the battle. Here's how she does it. She goes to Aphrodite and asks for a piece of lingerie she has that'll make Zeus want her. Aphrodite happily complies. She then approaches the god Sleep and asks him to weave a spell of sleep over Zeus. Sleep is at first kind of scared to do this, because he thinks Zeus might be angry, but then Hera promises him one of the Graces to be his wife. So Sleep says, "How could I not go for that?" Hera does approach Zeus on top of Mount Ida, and seeing her dressed as she is, he suggests that they make love. And here is come on lines. "You can go there later just as well. Let's go to bed now and make love. No goddess or woman has ever made me feel so overwhelmed with lust. Not even when I fell for..." Wait a minute. We're about to get a list of women who are not named Hera that Zeus has slept with. That is, Zeus is about to tell Hera about a number of his relationships with other women by way of comparing them to her and how much he wants her right now. This is some game. I'll continue. Not even when I fell for Ixion's wife, who bore Perithous, wise as a god. Or Danae, with lovely slim ankles, who bore Perseus, a paragon of men. Or the daughter of far-famed Phoenix, who bore Minos and godlike Rhadamanthus. Or Semele, or Alcmene in Thebes, who bore Heracles, a stout-hearted son. And Semele bore Dionysus, a joy to humans. Or Demeter, or a fair-haired queen. Or glorious Leto, or even you. I've never loved anyone as I love you now. Never been in the grip of so sweet a desire. Again, we get comic relief. Everything will work out for Hera, even though she has to endure hearing all the names of the women that Zeus has slept with. She'll seduce him. They will make love on top of Mount Ida outside. And living up to certain male stereotypes, Zeus will fall asleep immediately afterwards and keep his eye off the battle. Hera will get what she wants, and the Greeks will be able to fight back. And this will set the stage for how Patroclus dies, which is the subject of Book 16. In Book 16, Patroclus gets his Aristeia. He goes out into battle and kills a whole lot of people dressed up as Achilles. Now, unlike certain movies you may have seen, no one is under the impression that it's actually Achilles in battle, at least no one on the Greek side. And certainly Hector knows that Patroclus is Patroclus when he confronts him. He happens to be wearing Achilles' armor, which is good enough to scare just about anyone. And he's fighting alongside Achilles' trusted Myrmidons, who are the toughest guys in the war, aside from Achilles himself. And the scene where Patroclus squares off with Hector reveals a couple of things about the Greeks and the Trojans. Earlier on in Book 16, Sarpedon, one of the greatest of the Trojan fighters, is killed by Patroclus. In lines 570 to 580, Glaucus chastises for the Trojans for holding back and from defending Sarpedon's body. He says, "Hector, you've abandoned your allies. We've been putting our lives on the line for you, far from our homes and loved ones, and you don't care enough to lend us aid? Sarpedon is down, our great warlord, whose word in Lycia was Lycia's law. Killed by Patroclus under Ares' prodding. Show some pride and fight for his body, or the Myrmidons will strip off the armor and defile his corpse in recompense for all the Greeks have killed by the ships." Why is he so worried about what the Myrmidons will do to Sarpedon's corpse? Well, it's not just that he doesn't want to leave a fallen brother behind. The Greeks and the Trojans have anxiety about their bodies and what happens to them after they die, because the way you look when you die is the way you look in eternity in the underworld. So often, to dishonor a body of a fallen warrior on the opposing side, Greeks and Trojans would sneak up on the body after it was dead and stab at it with their spears and kick it and do other things to it as well. You wanted to keep that from happening to your fallen brothers, so you would pull them out of battle as quickly as possible after they had died. Another note on Book 16, and this is on the prophecy of the dying. At the end of Book 16, in lines 885 to 894, as Hector vaunts over the nearly dead Patroclus, Patroclus tells the future, and he says the following, which will come true. "Brag while you can, Hector. Zeus and Apollo have given you an easy victory this time. If they hadn't knocked off my armor, I could have made mincemeat of 20 like you. It was fate and Leto's son who killed me, of men Euphorbus. You come in third at best. And one more thing for you to think over. You're not going to live long. I see death standing at your shoulder. And you going down under the hands of Peleus' perfect son." Well, everything he's said is true. But why? And as it turns out, the Greeks believe those who were dying or just about to die have the power to tell the future.